Namaste nerds, this is Navanad, Budget Pub Stomper, and today we're talking about Tannuk Memorial Ensign. Before we really get started, I want to say that this is about the most fun that I've had building a deck and goldfishing a commander in a long time. This deck is a blast. I mean, as soon as I saw this card, from the very first time I saw it spoiled, I was interested in it, and I'm not a Landfall type of a guy. You know, I'm not really, I don't usually lean into the Gruul stuff or the Landfall stuff, but there was just something about this commander that just sort of spoke to me. But I have to be honest, ever since then, I've been really debating in my head and, well, with other people, trying to figure out, is this going to work? You know, does this guy do enough? Okay, before I get too far ahead of myself, what does he do? Tannuk Memorial Ensign is a 3-mana Gruul 2/4. It's a red, a green, and 1. With two kind of landfall abilities. It's the first one is let me just read it. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, Tannuk deals 1 damage to each opponent. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card. Okay, so as far as using him as a value engine, I was skeptical as to whether you could actually get enough card draw off of him to make him a kind of like a decent value engine without having access to all of the expensive, like, true fetch lands. That was one thing that I was really, I don't know if concerned is the right word, but I was skeptical about it. But now, goldfishing the deck, yes, this guy absolutely keeps the cards flowing. This is, for sure, a value engine in the command zone. This is a card draw engine, and you don't have to play that many. I mean, we're playing landfall type cards, right? But we don't have to play anything too crazy. We don't have to stuff a bunch of bad cards in the deck to make that trigger a decent amount of the time. In fact, not until goldfishing, which I just finished, really, did I know how it was going to work out. And it kind of, it blew me away. Whatever I was expecting, and I was a little bit pessimistic. I was cautiously optimistic to the verge of pessimistic. Let's say it that way. But it definitely is better at drawing cards than I would have expected, for sure. This thing will keep the cards flowing. You're going to have no problem with card draw if you can keep your commander in play. And I don't think people are going to look at this like an Avengers level threat that they have to remove at all costs, right? So Tannuk has that going for it. It is a value engine, so it checks that box. But it's also, and this is one of the first things that appealed to me about it, is it's an outlet for a known and played cEdh combo, the Ashaya combos, the Ashaya with the Quirion Ranger, or either of the, quote, Power Rangers. But it's not just a value or a Ashaya. It's not just an Ashaya outlet. In my book, it's the Ashaya outlet. Like, this is actually a better Ashaya outlet than any that I've ever played Ashaya with. I mean, I've played Ashaya in my Mixed and Boo deck, and that's got some limitations and some problems and some difficulties to navigate. I play it in all of the mono green decks that I've played. Ashaya is kind of one of the main pieces in Selvala or Marwyn. But in this deck, it's better. And I'm going to explain why. So normally, and if you're not familiar, the Ashaya Q Ranger combo works like this. Ashaya turns all of your creatures into forests. And by that token, they are lands. And Quirion Ranger says, return a forest you control to owner's hand to untap target creature, but you can use its ability only 1 time each turn. So normally what's going to happen is you'll have Ashaya and either Q Ranger or Scrib Ranger, this gal here. You'll have one of your Rangers in play, and you'll have Ashaya. And let's just stick with the example of Ashaya and Quirion Ranger. So you'll have these two in play. And then you'll have to have generally a third piece, like a big mana dork, say a Priest of Titania, a Marwyn, a Selvala, a creature that you can tap that makes at least 2 mana, and at least 2 mana if you're trying to go infinite with Quirion Ranger, and at least 3 mana or another piece to go along with it. You have to net with Quirion Ranger. You have to have a dork or a creature that can tap for at least 2 mana to net positive. And with Scrib Ranger, you have to have a dork that taps for 3, or some combination of cards, like a dork that taps for 2 and a Lotus Cobra, or a dork that taps for 2 and a Goblin Anarchomancer. That would get the job done. Or a dork that taps. So you need some combination of effects. And even when you're using Ashaya with Quirion Ranger, if you're playing this in Selvala or Marwyn, so you would not only need Ashaya and one of the Rangers, but you also need a big mana dork, and you need an outlet for all of your mana. So the idea is, since Ashaya makes all of your creatures into lands, into forests, and Q Ranger allows you to return forest to untap creatures, you would use the Quirion Ranger to return the Quirion Ranger, because it's a forest, to your hand to untap a dork that you can tap for more mana than it costs to cast the Quirion Ranger the next time. So you'd say tap Priest of Titania for 2 mana, use one of those mana to play the Quirion Ranger again, and now it's a new game piece, and so you can use its ability again. So you would have 1 mana floating still, and you would bounce the Quirion Ranger to your hand to untap the Priest of Titania, tap the Priest of Titania for at least 2 mana, and then cast the Quirion Ranger again. And in doing this, you would net infinite mana. So normally you would need Ashaya and Quirion Ranger and a big mana dork, and then you'd still need an outlet for the infinite mana. So that's kind of a lot of stuff that you have to have in play. And if you're using the Scrib Ranger, you need even more pieces. You need like all of those things plus a Lotus Cobra, or all of those things plus a Tireless Provisioner. All of those things plus a Goblin and Anarchomancer to bring the cast cost of the Scrib Ranger down to Quirion Ranger level. You don't need all of that with this commander. This commander says whenever a land you control enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. When you're going through this loop just with Ashaya and Quirion Ranger, you are playing Quirion Ranger as a land, and that is going to trigger the Landfall ability of Tannuk, which is going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. Then you can bring it back to your hand just by having any creature that doesn't have Summoning Sickness. So let's say that you go turn 2 Tannuk, and then on turn 3 you're able to ramp into Ashaya and play your Quirion Ranger. So now that's it. You're threatening a win, because you can tap Tannuk, because remember, Ashaya says all of your creatures are forests. Well, that includes Tannuk, so he's a forest, and forests tap for green mana. So you can tap your Tannuk, you can tap your commander for a green mana to play the Quirion Ranger. So again, we played Tannuk on turn 2, Ashaya on turn 3. Now we can tap Tannuk to cast the Quirion Ranger, and that's going to ping the entire table. Now we're going to use the Quirion Ranger's ability to return it to our hand and untap the Tannuk. Now we're going to tap the Tannuk again to make a green mana to cast the Quirion Ranger again. It's going to ETB and ping the table, and then you're going to return it to your hand, untapping Tannuk. You tap it again, play the Quirion Ranger again, return the Quirion Ranger to untap Tannuk again, and you're going infinite damage right there on the spot. And by the way, along the way, you will have drawn an extra card too. Because the second time, just exactly the second time, this happens, the second time you cast the Quirion Ranger with your Tannuk and your Ashaya in play, it'll proc the draw a card ability. What's funny is the first time I was thinking about this combo, this commander, and using this combo line in the commander, I got really bummed out, because I first thought you'd be able to use this combo to draw your deck. And then I got bummed thinking that it isn't going to work, because it doesn't trigger every time past the first time and draw a card. The card draw ability of the commander only triggers exactly on the second time that you resolve the ability. And so it was kind of lost on me at first that you don't really need to draw your deck if you have murdered your opponents by pinging them to death, right? Anyway, so what else is there to say about the deck? So that's the primaries about the deck. Number one, the commander is a value engine in that it turns otherwise playable cards that are already kind of good on their own into extra card draw, and it pings the table, and it gives you a really good outlet for your Ashaya combos. So it's not just that though. I mean, it's that, but then there's more going on. And like the other big, like kind of, I guess the other thing that was to me most interesting about the commander was its interaction with Keen Sense. The problem with it, well, so let's talk about the interaction with Keen Sense. I mean, this is busted. If you can get this, I mean, in goldfishing, it just goes crazy. But I mean, even if you just think about it for a second, let's go to Keen Sense. So Keen Sense is a curiosity. It's the green curiosity. It's just an enchantment, an aura. 1 green mana, enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Great. So when we have that on Tannuk, Tannuk says whenever a land you control enters, you deal 1 damage to each opponent. And if it's the second time, you also draw a card. You don't draw a card instead. You also draw a card. Every time a land enters with Tannuk, you ping the table. If you've got a curiosity effect on, that means every time a land ETBs, you're going to draw 3 cards. While you're drawing those cards in this deck in specific, you're very likely to bump into something like a Rampant Growth or a Nature's Lore. Or a 3 Visits, or I didn't play the Cultivates, I didn't go quite that far. Or a Rolling Regrowth, or a Intish Restoration, or a Harrow. So every time the landfall triggers, you're going to draw 3 cards, and if that draws you into more things that are going to trigger more landfall, that's going to draw you more cards, so on and so forth, and you're basically going to storm off. And in a lot of cases, you will storm off. Like if you have a Lotus Cobra in play, or any Lotus Cobra-like effect in play, when you get the Keen Sense on Tannuk, and you still have a land to drop, you're gonna storm off. Most of the time, you're gonna storm off there. Or if you've got abilities to play extra lands, that's gonna help all the more. Like loot, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. We've got these, what are they called? Like the Tribe Scout type guys. Sakura Tribe Scout. There's 2 or 3 of these effects in the deck, where you can tap. Well, Sakura Tribe Elder Tribe Scout just says, tap, you may play a land card from your hand. Or you can put a land from your hand into play. So even if you've already played your land, you've made your land drop, you can tap the Tribe Scout to play another land, and you'll get another landfall trigger. And we've got, what's the other version? There's another 1 mana that's not exactly identical. Right here. Choose a land card in your hand and put it into play. Now this one you can only use as a sorcery, so you have to do this on your turn. Usually not a big deal, especially because the effects that we're using, the other landfall triggering effects that we're using in the deck, mostly are instants, like the Harrow effects. You can use at instant speed. So a lot of times when you've got your commander in play and you're going through gold fishing, or I have to think when you're actually playing the deck, you're going to space these effects out so that you maximize the number of cards you draw, and ideally you'll be able to draw, well, sometimes even 1 card on each player's turn. You'll draw a card on your turn, and then you'll trigger it on each opponent's turn some of the time. No, that's not going to be always, but it's also not like Magic Christmas Land. It happens. There's engines in the deck. The way that I've got the deck built, there's engines that you're going to set up. Like I have no idea how to pronounce this guy, but he says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Then he's got some flavor text about getting +1 for each land you control. No, I mean, that's a clock, right? It really is. But then it also says at the beginning of your end step, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Now, most of the time in most decks, that's going to be a disadvantage. But with this commander and with the way this deck is built, we want that text on that card. We actually want the ability to return a land to hand and be able to, so that you just maximize the number of times you're going to be able to draw the extra card on each of your turns. And most of the time, when the deck gets set up around turn 3, 4, 5, you're drawing a card on, at least an extra card on each one of your turns and then some. So the Keen Sense is the most busted thing you can do with this guy. The problem is the only way you have to tutor for Keen Sense is Gamble. Now, I was able to make room in the deck for the copy of Gamble. You have to have it. Probably the number one thing you want to do is Ashaya. The number two thing you want to do is slap a Curiosity on this fucking commander and go hog wild. And I'm not even sure that's the right order. But Gamble is the only clean tutor for this effect. You do, however, have other versions of the effect. Now, I pretty well knew right off the bat that this card existed, Snake Umbra. I didn't know exactly the mana value and such. It's not that bad. This is like Ophidian Eye if you're playing in the like Malcolm Kedis type stuff, or the Niv Mizzet decks. 3 mana is kind of the going rate for this effect. God, if only we had a Tandem Lookout in this deck, like an actual creature version. That would be sick. We don't. We've got to settle for Snake Umbra. But this is the same thing. It says enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has the Curiosity text. Also, this is Totem Armor. It says if enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy this aura. So it gives your commander a little extra. It makes it a little harder to kill. And believe me, when you get this thing on your commander, they're going to want to kill it. They're going to have to kill it. And they're going to have to do it fast. Or you're just going to run away with the game. Then we've got, there's one other version of this effect that I wasn't aware of, though, until I started looking at other people's builds of Tannuk, which I usually do. If I'm going to build a commander, I poke around and see what other people are up to. Mostly, I think I had about 80 cards in the deck before I started doing this. I had a vision, guys. I had a vision for this deck, and anybody who's in the Discord knows. I pretty well knew where I wanted to go with the list. So we've got Keen Sense, we've got Snake Umbra, but we also have the one, and I should have known about that. I mean, I knew the card existed. I had this in my Vivi deck, in my build of Vivi, for budget Vivi and for cEdh Vivi. Virtue of Courage is not quite as good as the others, but it does have some extra. It's got an adventure stapled on it, so you get a little kind of quasi card advantage here. You can pay 2 mana to cast the instant. It just is a 2 damage spell to any target. It's an instant, 2 damage for 2 mana, whatever. But why we're playing the card is because of the main text. Whenever a source, it's just an enchantment that stays in play. It doesn't attach to your commander, which is really nice. And it just says, whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play those cards this turn. So that's really busted in a lot of decks. It's really busted in Vivi, and it's really busted here. It's really busted in the new Niv Mizzet. It's like super busted in that deck, but it's really, really good here. It's basically a third version of Keen Sense or Snake Umbra. You could almost say a fourth version because we have Gamble. So now we've actually got a thing here, right? Like we've got, did I read the card? Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library, and you may cast those spells. No, you may play those cards this turn, and that's obviously very important. So we can keep re-triggering our landfall stuff. You can play lands with the ability is the point. So now we've got, counting the Gamble, basically 4 versions of this. So now we can honestly not count on reliably running into this, but in a pretty long game, there's a pretty damn good chance that we're going to find one of these effects. Then we've got some other engines. I talked a little bit about like the kind that you're going to have to assemble. Like your Zell Dinched becomes an engine. If you've got, let's look at the actual land base, because some of the lands are going to be part of engines in the deck, like Gruul Turf. It's a bounce land. I'm sure you've seen these. You play this, you return a land to your hand so that you're always going to have that extra land drop, assuming you've got the ability to make an additional land drop. And there's lots of cards in the deck that allow you to do that. What's the other? There's a combo. Well, there's there's so much to talk about in this deck, and I'm already starting to lose my voice. Do we want to talk about all of the engines? I don't know. Probably maybe we'll do gold fishing. It might have to be a second video. But we've got, suffice it to say, we've got lands that put themselves in your graveyard. Jund panoramas, like these are the budget fetch lands, and these are good. These panoramas are great. I wish I had more of them to play. But we've got, I think I put one of the like really bad budget fetch lands. That's the like Broker's Hideout. But then we've got some like utility lands like Ghost Quarter. This isn't that bad, and it kind of does the same thing for us. So we've got lands that are going to land themselves in our graveyard, and then we've got ways to play lands from the grave. Conduit of Worlds says you may play lands from your graveyard. And we're also sacrificing lands to get more lands, so that's going to end up being more lands that we put into our graveyard. And as soon as you get to one land that can sacrifice itself, like an emergent zone, and you've got one of these in play, you've got the ability to just consistently play and replay that land from your graveyard. I don't know how much time we want to waste on these engines. Let's see how we're doing on time. About like I thought. So let's keep moving. Let's talk about the rest of the combo finishes. Or I guess I'm going to give you an overarching look at the deck. We're going to be trying to generate value with Landfall. Our commander has a card draw Landfall ability that we will be able to proc. I've designed the deck in a way to try to maximize how often we can proc it without playing a bunch of bad cards. We've got kind of utility creatures, other utility cards that are going to help with the engine and help us to put other little mini engines together. Then we've got the combo finishes of, we already talked about the main primary win condition, Ashaya. We've got the keen sense stuff. We talked about playing stuff from the graveyard. So if we've got like, there's lots and lots. If we've got a Ramanap Excavator that allows us to cast or play lands out of our graveyard. And then we've got a extra land drop effect, a loot. So if we've got those two, then we just need a self-sacrificing land, or I don't know, we have to sacrifice some lands. And then we've got an engine going. We've got Broker's Hideout, and we can just play the hideout, crack it, get the land, the second landfall proc, which draws us a card. Then we can play that out of our graveyard and get more procs, right? Now, some of these do come into play tapped. A lot of them are going to have a land coming into play tapped at some point. So I didn't want to go crazy with these effects because I think they're generally low card quality. But we're playing Spelunking. Just says when it ETBs, draw a card. Then you can play a land from your hand. And then also lands you control ETB untapped. I thought that was enough things that the deck wants because we actually do want that trigger to draw a card more in this deck than we might in other decks, which I'm just going to use as my transition into the next win condition we're going to talk about. We are playing the Goblin Recruiter lines in this deck. So the Conspicuous Snoop. We're playing the Goblin Recruiter becomes a one-card win assembler in this deck. And the reason I decided to do that is because our deck, our commander draws cards, and our deck is designed in a way that should make it pretty easy to set up the conditions to be able to not only handle the red mana that's required for the combo, but also to crack the Goblin Recruiter pile. And so what I mean is you need a card draw, but specifically you're going to need to draw a card in a way that doesn't shuffle your library. So the Goblin Recruiter, if you're not familiar with this combo, this is the Kiki-Jiki combo I'm referring to. The Kiki-Jiki Conspicuous Snoop Goblin Recruiter combo. We're going to cast the Goblin Recruiter. When we do, it says that you can find any number of Goblin cards, reveal them, and then put them on top of your deck in any order. You shuffle the rest of your deck, and then you put them on top in any order. What we're going to do is we're going to put Torch Courier on top. No. Sorry. Sometimes we do. If we've got our Conspicuous Snoop in play, we do. Most of the time, we're going to put the conspicuous snoop on top. Underneath the conspicuous snoop, we're going to put torch courier. Underneath the torch courier, we're going to put cEdh. So what's going to happen here is when we cast our Goblin Recruiter, we will have a conspicuous snoop on the top of our deck. Now, usually, your opponents are now going to see that you're going to win the game on your next turn. And so you're in this situation where all of your opponents know that if they don't deal with you in some way or try to win the game themselves, you're about to win on your next go, which usually means you're not going to win on your next go. And often means you're not going to get a next go. But this combo plays best in decks that are able to crack that pile. So when we put the pile together, we've got Snoop on top, Torch Courier directly underneath. So what we need to do is we need to draw the Snoop and then produce 2 red in order to cast the Snoop, and then produce another red to be able to cast the Torch Courier. Then we win the game. Conspicuous Snoop says, play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast Goblin cards from the top of your library. As long as the top card of your library is a Goblin card, Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card. So we want to get to a situation where that card is cEdh. So, assuming we have a way to draw a card, for instance, what was the card? Spelunking, okay? That's how we transitioned. So we've got the Goblin Recruiter pile set up. We're going to cast Spelunking or draw a card by any number of means. We're going to play a land out of our graveyard, and it's a second land drop. There's your trigger, draw a card. So any of the myriad ways we have of drawing a card, we're going to draw a card. That card is going to be Conspicuous Snoop. We'll need red. We'll cast the Snoop. We need 1 more red, because now the next card down is Torch Courier. Now, Conspicuous Snoop gives us the ability to cast goblins off the top of our deck. We need 1 more red mana. Then we can cast the Torch Courier. With the Torch Courier in play, we can crack the Torch Courier to give target creature haste. That's going to be the Conspicuous Snoop. Now, the last remaining card of our Goblin pile is cEdh. So cEdh is on top of the library. Conspicuous Snoop has all of the activated abilities of all Goblin cards on top of your library. So now our Conspicuous Snoop has the abilities of cEdh. That means we can tap Conspicuous Snoop to make a copy of target creature, target non-legendary creature. Now, cEdh can't copy himself, but it's only because he is a legendary creature. Conspicuous Snoop can use cEdh's ability to make copies of itself because it's not a legend. So cEdh says tap to make a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control onto the battlefield. So you make a copy, and then that token gets haste. Then you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Well, in this situation, there's not going to be a next end step. We are going to, so we've got our Conspicuous Snoop. It's got haste because we cracked the Torch Courier. Now cEdh is on top of the deck. We're going to tap the Snoop to make a copy of the Snoop. We're going to tap the copy of the Snoop to make another copy of another Snoop. We're going to use that to make a Snoop and that to make a Snoop. And we're going to end up with this armada of billions and billions of tapped Conspicuous Snoops. But they're all tapped except for the last one. Well, the last one is going to tap to make a copy, not of another Conspicuous Snoop. It's going to tap to make a copy of Goblin Recruiter. Then we're going to find the last, we're going to find the last Goblin in our deck that we'll need to find. We're going to find Mogg Fanatic. We're going to put Mogg Fanatic on top of our deck. Mogg Fanatic has an ability. It says sacrifice Mogg Fanatic. Mogg Fanatic deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Now we've got a billion Snoops. They're all tapped. But now we've got Mogg Fanatic on top of our library. So now all of our Conspicuous Snoops have the ability to sacrifice to deal 1 damage to any target. And that just means your opponents are all dead. Yeah, so that's the, that's the coolest way. No, that's not the coolest way to win it's a cool way. It's a 1-card win. So that's pretty cool. Having access to 1-card win assemblers is very important if you're trying to stay competitive. But there's a little bit more to that combo, and then there's some more kind of interwoven combos. I think the last thing I want to say about this is you generally don't want to just play your recruiter out and just tell your opponents that you're going to win the game on your next turn if you can't win the game immediately. So one additional way that just makes a lot of sense in the deck, and this is actually the last card I added to the list after goldfishing for a while, Emergent Zone. Now we're playing crop rotation in this deck anyway, and I actually was pretty happy with the little budget crop rotation package I was able to assemble. We've got ways of taking out other people's lands. We've got Mirror Pool as a little extra utility. We're not necessarily doing any comboing with the Mirror Pool in this deck, but it's just nice to be able to access it with our crop rotation. But the number one target for crop rot is probably going to be Emergent Zone. So the nice thing about Emergent Zone, well, it's just a good card. It allows you to cast spells as though they were instants or as though they had flash. Well, in this deck, the best use of that oftentimes is going to be when you've got your Goblin Recruiter, you're going to wait until the end step before your untap, and you're going to crop rot, E-zone, crack the E-zone, and play your Goblin Recruiter as an instant. Super important. That's a super important, very relevant part of the line. I mean, it's not essential, but it's almost essential that either you have the mana and card draw requisite to go off the turn you set the pile, or that you're able to E-zone, or maybe even crop rot into E-zone, into Goblin Recruiter, so that you can go to your turn immediately, untap, draw your Snoop, play your Snoop. The pile is otherwise the same. Now you can cast the Torch Courier off the top of your deck, but you're totally untapped. And then there's one more combo that we just have to discuss in this deck, and I can't take any credit for this. We were supposed to be doing Dueling Friends. We were going to, my buddy that was on the podcast last weekend and I kind of did a challenge between each other. We each built Vren the Relentless. We each built our own version of that deck, and then we kept it on lockdown and made sure that nobody knew what cards were in our deck. Nobody on the Discord knew. We set the list to private. Then we wanted to do a podcast where we kind of each of us reveal our versions of the deck, and then discussed kind of the similarities, what things we did in common, what things we didn't do, and why, and if there's things that we see in our, for the little mini competition, we'll say opponent, see if there's things in the opposing deck that we wish we had thought of, so on. And we're going to do that eventually, probably in a week. So probably Sunday, a week from the time of recording anyway. Probably this Sunday we're going to do that. That was the original thing. We weren't able to get our schedules to jive, but he did give me this idea for the deck. Petrovark. I did not have any idea that this existed. I saw this in none of the other decks that I was looking at. So when I built this deck, I came up with just like the obvious, absolute, most critical pieces that I knew had to be in the deck, and I jammed those into the deck. Then I went to some of the decks that I have in my personal queue that are the same colors, and I kind of just do a compare. Maybe I'll go through this with you guys one time. I actually did this, but I did a video where I built a deck kind of in real time, but I don't really build decks that way anymore. Maybe I will do that. That's on my roster for things to do. I'm going to show you guys how I build a deck. But I guess to finish the thought, this guy, when I was going through my process, I was looking at my own decks and then other people's versions of Tannuk. And then I even normally open up, what is it called? The Architect thing. I normally open up EDH Rec, and I look and see if there's anything that's just obvious must-include crap that I'm forgetting about or missing, but I didn't get that far this time. I had the idea. I had most of the cards figured out just off of my own, just what I had in my mind for the last week or so. Then when I looked at some other red and green decks that I have in my queue, that pretty much finished up the rest of the list. Then I was able to steal some pieces from other people's Tannuk decks. And then just goldfishing, iterating and reiterating, I was able to kind of work out the bugs and flaws. But this showed up in none of that. So I just have to thank, I don't know how he wants to be called. He's something pants. 35 minutes. Okay. Yeah, I thought I can't think of that. He goes by something on Moxfield, but on our Discord he's just Nero. That's capital N, lowercase e, capital R, lowercase o. Nero came up with this as far as I know. This says, when Petrovarch comes into play, remove target land from the game. When Petrovarch leaves play, return the removed card to play under its owner's control. So what do we know about Ashaya? Ashaya makes things that are not lands into lands, while creatures. Petrovarch is a creature. So that means that Petrovarch will see himself as a land. That means that Petrovarch has this ability. When Petrovarch comes into play, remove target Petrovarch from the game. When Petrovarch leaves play, return the removed card back to play under the owner's control. And so this is just going to flicker in and out of existence as soon as you play it if you've got Ashaya in play. And that is going to burn the table out if you've got your commander in play. So that is another A plus B combo that this commander and this commander alone gets to take advantage of. And so I think it's a real deck, guys. It plays, like, sometimes it's real fast. Sometimes it's real grindy. It's not always doing the same things, but it's always doing something messed up. That's what I'll say about the deck. In goldfishing, it sometimes turbos off. I think probably the average win is going to be around turn 5.5, sometimes faster. It's not that uncommon to get a turn 4 win. I think more often 5 or 6, but most of the time you'll be able to put a win together by turn 5 or 6 if that's what you're trying to do. But the other thing about the deck is that it just has all these crazy grind engines that it's just going to be able to grind forever. And then it's just got also just a ton of layered combos. The deck is just going to be so damn hard to put down. That's what. So I always think a deck has to kind of have a place in the meta. It's got to kind of justify its existence in a way. And if I had to say how this deck justifies its existence, it's not the fastest deck, and it's maybe not the most consistent deck. But what I think it is it's going to be resilient as they come. You're just not going to be able to stomp this thing out. This deck is going to put out, if it puts up a win attempt on turn 4 and you stop the win attempt on turn 4, you're going to have to worry about the one on turn 5 and 6 and 7. And it just keeps grinding and it keeps trying to win. It's going to be, what do I want to say, like a layered grind machine, right? It doesn't always do the same thing, but you do have these patterns that keep coming up, and I think there's going to be a really high skill ceiling on the deck. The more you play it, the more kind of outlandish it's going to become. But yeah, Petrovis is just one more piece to that puzzle. Obviously, if we've got Kiki Jiki in the deck, we might as well include an A plus B Kiki combo, so we can also just go, like for instance, in-step shared summons, find Kiki Jiki, Hyrax, Tower Scout, go to your turn, untap, cast the Kiki Jiki and the Hyrax Tower Scout, you tap the Kiki Jiki to make a copy of the Tower Scout. When the Tower Scout copy ETBs, it untaps the Kiki Jiki. You'll tap the Kiki Jiki to make an untap. You know where this is going. We're going to make infinite Hyrax Tower Scout tokens. Little copies. Also, you can use Scrib Ranger to fill in for Quirion Ranger. So we've got the A plus the B. We've got the A plus the other B. And then we've also got the A plus the other B. But in the case of Scrib Ranger, I think I touched on this already. You will have to have a Lotus Cobra in play, or you'll have to have the Goblin on an Archomancer, so the Scrib Ranger only costs 1 mana. or you'll have to have the tireless provisioner, because it'll make a treasure token and you can use that to effectively cost reduce the Scrib Ranger. So that's what we're doing in the deck. We're assembling engines, we're playing lands, we're putting a ton of mana into play, and we're looking for win conditions. We're hoping to bump into a Keen Sense or something like a Keen Sense along the way. If that happens, you're just going to change course and storm the fuck off. I mean, that is some. I'd like to show you the gold fishing of that. Now, this deck is very mana hungry, but I did not neglect that part. We've got Tinderwall. We've got ritual type effects like Tinderwall, Elvish Spirit Guide, Simian Spirit Guide. We've got Mana Dorks. We've got extra land drops. We've got your Harrows. There's not a lot of rocks, but there are 2 rocks, Soul Ring and Arcane Signet, which actually makes me think of something on the spot here. I do want to end the video. It's going a little bit long. I feel like I'm starting to ramble a little bit too, but not before I drop this one card that just occurred to me into the considering board. This should be in the deck. No ifs, ands, or buts. The next time you look at this list, this probably will be in the deck. This is probably about as good as a collector oof deck that you're likely to find. That should go in ASAP. I don't know. Maybe that'll be the way we sign off today. I'm just gonna make a cut. I'm tempted for it to be Spelunking. I really hate this card. No, it helps a lot with some of our more out there engines that we haven't talked about. Basically, the ones that are gonna have to do with either replaying stuff like Broker's Hideout or Ghost Quarter or Jund Panorama, E-Zone, sometimes Mirror Pool. Mirror Pool is just a cool card, and it fits really well in this deck. And we're playing we've got crop rotation, but I think I should also mention, aside from crop rotation, we've got Archdruid's Charm, which is a creature tutor and a removal. It just does everything. Everybody that's seen my, if you've talked to me about this card, you know how over the moon I am for this card. I'm in love with Archdruid's Charm, and I don't care who knows it. Archdruid's Charm does everything, but one of the things it does is it becomes a 3-mana version of crop rotation, kind of. It says search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it, put it onto the battlefield, tapped if it's a land card. So it does, ETB's tapped, but if you're doing it in end step, a lot of times it'll accomplish what you're looking to accomplish. Sometimes you'll have a Conduit of Worlds in play. For instance, you'll have a Conduit of Worlds. You'll have a Loot. So you've got an extra land drop every turn. You've got the ability to play land cards from your graveyard. And you've got a grindy game state, say. And you have a tutor in your hand. You've got the crop rotation or the Archdruid's Charm. You may well just find yourself tutoring for Broker's Hideout in that case, and just setting up a nasty engine. And especially if you've got Spelunking in play. So if that's not obvious, and there are other versions of that, we've got Ramanap Excavator instead of Conduit, and that's an easy one to tutor for. The deck is loaded with creature tutors. We're Gruul, of course it is. But you could have Ramanap Excavator, allows you to play lands from your graveyard, and then your Loot or your any of your tap to play a land, any of your extra land effects, maybe your Zell Dinched. I took a stab at it. I don't know. How'd I do? You tell me. But in that case, if you've got all these pieces, then you may well want to use the Archdruid's Charm to find the Broker's Hideout or the Jund Panorama, maybe the Mirror Pool. That could be gross. Okay, I'm getting off topic again, aren't I? What was I going to do before I pieced out? I was going to replace a piece for Collector. Oof. No, I think, here's another little engine. Valakut Exploration. Landfall. Whenever a land ETBs, exile the top card of your library. You may play that land. No, you may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. At the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with it, put them into the graveyard, and then this deals that much damage to each opponent. So that can be a nasty value engine. I was a little bit reluctant about it. I've been a little bit reluctant for the regarding this card in general, because until today I always misread it. I didn't realize the cards don't stay in exile. So if you exile cards and then you don't get a chance to play them, you don't lose them. So if they're combo pieces that you're not ready for, they just go into the graveyard. And we've got plenty of ways to get them back out of the graveyard. Like our Eternal Witness, which can be its own little value engine with a Kiki-Jiki. Alright, now we are just rambling. You get the idea. There's tons of crazy layered kooky shit going on here. It's a ton of fun to play, and I think we've got something here. I think this is an effective deck. Minkskin Boo, Timeless Hero is a just crazy value engine. Play this in all of your Gruul decks, and that is me signing out. Until next time. Shit, boy did I go over. I'm not even going to do my peace out thing. Namaste, nerds.